I think with his work ethic, his skill set, his IQ, his passion, and his hunger, I think he's going to be more than ready to start the season next year.
Even going back to last season, even before the season was over, every now and then I would ask the coach and say, who do you like in the draft? And the one name that always came out was Nik Stauskas. And he would say, V, you got to watch this kid from Michigan. He's great. I love that kid. And so he's liked this kid since last season. And so I think he's delighted to have him on the team.
We thought of every scenario for how we would get him because, you know, you never know in this draft. You never do. And you guys know we talked about being active. I can tell you this, and Vivek can tell you this. My phone didn't stop the whole time, but not at the expense of losing that pick for that player.
You are locked into the Cowbell Kingdom podcast, frontline coverage of the Sacramento Kings. Now, here are your hosts, Jonathan Santiago and James Ham.
Welcome to the Cowbell Kingdom podcast. I am James Ham. Alongside me, Mr. Jonathan Santiago. We are live here from the Experience Center, the Sacramento Kings' new downtown building that overlooks the site where the new arena will go. John, it's draft night, crazy night. Nik Stauskas, first pick. What are your thoughts?
I'm not too surprised that nothing happened.
It's a weird night, isn't it?
I'm not that shocked. I posed that to fans on Twitter before the NBA draft and asked them, what if nothing happens and they wind up keeping the pick and they draft a player there? The Kings don't even get any other picks. They don't buy any second-round picks. They don't make moves for other first-round picks. They don't make moves for other second-round picks. They just wound up standing pat with what they had. And to me, that, like, based on what we know about this front office and this new organization, I feel like they were rebuked by a lot of teams in the NBA today trying to make moves to acquire more assets just with what they could offer.
Yeah, John, I think that this is like a really interesting draft because, number one, it's very top-heavy. We did see Noah Vonleh slide all the way down to, number 10, which actually I think Draft Express had him slated at number 10 today right before the draft started. So that was kind of interesting.
What was the deal with that? What do you think?
You know what the deal... Do you want me to speak freely or do you want me to hold back, John?
You can speak freely now. The draft is over.
The deal with that is I don't think he was anywhere near the top 10 all the way through the draft season. I saw him. We met him. I thought that it was a lot of fluff, a lot of overinflated worth, and that's not to say he's not going to be a decent player, but he is a huge, like, boom-bust, prospect. He's got some skill, but everyone talking about him as if he's a stretch 4 when he didn't play that way in college at all. And it just really some surprising things that came out of the pre-draft workouts with him. I think he was like a smokescreen guy. Everyone brought him up into the top 10, into the top 8. He was supposed to be the number 8 guy. And I think when it got to the Kings, they passed on him. And then, another team passed on him right afterwards. And then finally he went at 10 to a team in, Charlotte, right?
Charlotte.
Which makes perfect sense because they're a team that always has guys just like that. Guys who sort of are overinflated in the draft process and then end up going way higher than what they should do. And it's just kind of a surprising thing if you really look at it, that this kid, out of all the kids, is a guy who tumbles, and he could be a good pro, but we'll see how it goes. But let's get back to Nik Stauskas and sort of the ripple effect that happens here with this player. What do the Kings do with Ben McLemore, John?
Well, we talked to Pete D'Alessandro, Vivek Ranadive, and Michael Malone after the draft, and they all reiterated that they still have faith in Ben McLemore and that they think that the two of them could even possibly play together.
Smokescreen.
And I don't really see that. I think that now they have a guy in Nik Stauskas who might actually be a better fit next to Isaiah Thomas, and with DeMarcus Cousins, he is a much better shooter than Ben McLemore at this point. There's a shooting chart that Kirk Goldsberry of Grantland actually shared, and the guy can shoot from basically anywhere on the floor.
And at 6'6".
Yeah, he's
not Jimmer Fredette.
He's a prototypical shooting guard.
He is.
He's
even a big shooting guard.
Yeah, he is what you expect a shooting guard to be. 6'6".
Yes.
And can actually shoot the basketball.
And has a decent
and can handle.
Vert. Yeah,
and he can handle.
Got great handles. He's got a very, very nice step back. I think, John, if I'm looking at him, the initial shock is, oh my gosh, they just chose another 2 guard. But I certainly remember saying all season long last year that, look, the Sacramento Kings played 4-on-5 every single night. Whether it's Marcus Thornton or it was Ben McLemore or it was Travis Outlaw, the Sacramento Kings had no shooting guard. And people who go, well, Ben's got so much potential. You know what? The Kings don't have 2 or 3 years to wait around for Ben McLemore. They've got a new stadium that's coming up. Just because they drafted this kid doesn't mean that Ben McLemore is done with the Kings. He can still play 20, 25 minutes a game off the bench. You don't know. You don't know what time will tell, what happens with Ben McLemore. He may be traded tomorrow. He may be traded on July 1st. These are things that could totally happen. But it's also possible that the Sacramento Kings walk into this next season. They have a epic battle between 2 very young players at the 2-guard position. And honestly, I think Nik Stauskas wins out. What he brings to the table is so much different than what Ben McLemore brings. He brings the ability to dribble, to create for himself, create for others, but also he's a very, very adept pick-and-roll player. Again, he averaged 4.6 pick-and-roll possessions per game in his sophomore season at Michigan, and that's without a player like DeMarcus Cousins alongside him. He opens up, like you said, he can shoot from anywhere on the floor. He's a guy that I didn't think that he would be the guy they chose. Honestly, I thought that they would go with one of the other players or they would trade this pick. I think it was an initial shock, but it makes a little more sense when you step back and think about it.
I definitely think they tried to move Ben. They tried.
Oh, I mean,
there was a report out there that they were in talks with the Celtics for the number 6 pick, and they had dangled Ben McLemore out there. I definitely think that there is some credence to that. But I think, as I mentioned, I think that the Kings tried to make moves today. Again, just because of the result, don't assume that they weren't out there active. They were active. I do believe that they were active. And
you don't just give it away.
Yeah. They were trying to make moves. I do believe they were trying to make moves, but I think they found they were in for a rude awakening today in terms of how they value Ben McLemore versus what the rest of the league sees Ben McLemore as. And, obviously you can't get him for, a top 10 pick. And you can't get a top 10 pick in this year's draft for Ben McLemore. And it would have made sense if you could have moved up to 6, get Marcus Smart. You also draft Nik Stauskas. That's a pretty nice backcourt. But, we'll see. We'll definitely see what happens with Ben. He's still an asset. How much value he has based on the season he had with the Sacramento Kings remains to be seen. But we'll definitely see. We'll definitely see how things play out the rest of the summer for the Sacramento Kings.
Well, John, there are a couple of things that I don't like about Nik Stauskas. And I think we should also, we should be honest here. Look, we were shocked at this pick, and I'm not sure that if I were drafting there, I would have made that pick.
I agree with you.
I think it's a very odd pick, and I'm not going to stand behind it and say this is the greatest pick the Sacramento Kings have ever done. This is not the Ben McLemore situation where a guy slid down the draft board, should have gone, 1, 2, 3 in a very weak draft and ends up falling all the way to 7. This is a different situation in my book. And I looked at the deal that happened earlier in the day where, the Orlando Magic traded Aaron Aflalo to the Denver Nuggets for Evan Fournier and a second-round pick. I looked at that and I thought, how can the Kings not have moved from, 12 from 8 to 12 and taken on Aaron Aflalo in a deal with Orlando. That to me would have been more appealing to Orlando than a second-round pick in Evan Fournier. And I'm slightly confused why the Kings didn't jump in on a deal like that, because Aaron Aflalo would have brought instant credibility to the two-guard position for the Kings. It's not like he's a world beater, but he's a guy that you could have relied on for 14, 15 points a game, some three-point shooting, some solid defense. He could have aided in the growth process of Ben McLemore. You wouldn't have had to give up a guy like Ben McLemore. I was a little surprised that the Kings didn't get in on that deal. And there are a couple other small deals. And the thing that stands out to me is that the Denver Nuggets got better. They got way better today. And the Sacramento Kings got a little better. And when you're in a great arms race with other teams in the Western Conference, I don't think that's how you have to play it.
Yeah, maybe they valued Nik Stauskas very highly and felt like if they did trade down, they wouldn't be able to get him, after number 9, because there was some talk of the Charlotte Hornets being interested in Stauskas as well with that 9th pick. So they probably were feeling like if they did move down, he wouldn't be available anymore, and they were just very high on him. But again, they put themselves in a bit of a quandary now, because you do have 2 young shooting guards here who are going to be competing for playing time, and again, we'll just have to see how this plays out. Do I like the pick? Personally, no, I don't. I don't think that it was a great pick, but at the same time, the pick was made. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah, and I don't think I dislike him as a player.
No, I don't. I think the more we get to learn about Nik Stauskas as a player, I think he's got a good amount of skills. He obviously addresses a area of weakness for the Sacramento Kings, and that is shooting. But is it a great pick? I would say no. But we have to, obviously, you cannot assess a pick until the kid actually gets on the floor and starts playing. And, we're now at that point where let's see what he can do in Summer League, and let's see what he can do in his rookie year in the NBA.
Yeah, and I think it should also be pointed out, look, the Kings got to see a lot of him. He did play in a big power conference in the NCAA. But the other thing I'll point out is that he and Doug McDermott have the same agent, and they hung out in Chicago together, and teams went to them. And I know Sacramento went and saw these two together. But if I'm going to judge a guy on whether he has the tools to succeed at the NBA level, I think I want to see him play against someone other than Doug McDermott, another player who has lateral quickness issues. Now, again, he may not have lateral quickness issues at the next level. I think when you're playing at Michigan and you're the star of your team, Trey Burke left and he was the star of the team, then you're going to do a lot of things offensively that take away from what you can do on the defensive end. I don't like that he averaged 0.6 steals per game. I don't like that he averaged 0.3 blocks or that he averaged less than 3 rebounds a game. Those, to me, are things that he needs to improve on quickly. But those might be also issues where he wasn't asked to do those things because he's the guy who's going to be carrying the brunt of the scoring. So, again, John, we need to see this kid play. I love that the Kings picked up a shooter. They have to have a shooter to open up the lanes for both Rudy Gay and for DeMarcus Cousins, even for Isaiah Thomas, if they do bring Isaiah Thomas back. And I also found it really interesting that Pete D'Alessandro, what he brought up in the pregame, in the post-draft conversation, was Isaiah Thomas. That is their first line of attack, that they need to figure out what's going to happen with Isaiah Thomas, and that, they're invested in Isaiah Thomas and they hope to retain him. And I think he makes a lot of sense next to Stauskas.
Yeah, I do.
But, man, if you're looking at walking into the season and you're scrapping for somebody, whoever it can be. I mean, we talked earlier about Sean Livingston has been rumored to be brought in by
you
Sacramento.
And I disagree about him because I like him, you don't like him.
Yeah, I don't like him. I don't like guys who have taco knees, whose knees have buckled and just required complete reconstruction
I believe
twice.
he's past that.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that the Kings have some options here, and it's good to see that that they've got Rudy Gay under contract, that they've got DeMarcus Cousins. Now they've got another young kid. They've got some assets, not a ton of great assets to deal, but the Kings are being active, and I think that that's a good thing.
Yeah, and I think at this point, we're going to, don't expect them to obviously make a huge splash via free agency. I do think in terms of free agency, they will be active in regards to retaining Isaiah Thomas. I find it interesting, our friend Sam Amick of USA Today reporting that his number, his range, and this is something we've questioned, we've wondered about, what is Isaiah Thomas's value on the open market? It's probably, according to Sam, $4 to $6 million a year. And if that is the number, in my opinion, you re-sign him. You match any offer sheet without question. If someone signs him to a $5 million offer sheet, it's done. I re-sign him without any question. But even if he signed to $7 million, I re-sign him. 8,
well, you're going to have to pay the luxury tax.
Yeah, but 8 is a question. Well, it's $1 million over the luxury tax.
Yeah.
For 1 year, of course.
Yeah, and then they do have $17 million coming off the books next year, and then the possibility of Rudy Gay, also a possibility of $36 million coming off the books for next year. So, there are possibilities here. Especially next season. The Kings have been kind of honest that they don't want to go above the luxury tax, but I don't think they're going to be a repeat offenders unless, they end up landing someone that's substantial and you've got to pay huge money to go with Rudy Gay and DeMarcus Cousins. But we'll see. That's down the road.
Yeah, and they're going to be, as I mentioned, when it comes to free agency, that's where you're going to see some activity. They are definitely, I feel like, going to be exploring moves through trades. Obviously, they've got expiring contracts, they've got chips to throw. I think, we talk about Ben McLemore. He is a chip that they can use and throw out there. Impossible deals, mixing him up with a Jason Terry or a Derek Williams or Jason Thompson. And you and I both feel like Jason Thompson is a guy who's probably going to be on the move this summer. I think the Kings will try and help his
desire to move.
His desire to move to go somewhere else this summer, and he's there, and I feel like the Kings will try and find a way to make a move to get rid of Jason Thompson, and maybe the deal with Josh Smith might still be on the table. Maybe it's not. I find it hard to just say, hey, this is completely dead. I think talks are always ongoing when it comes to trades.
Well, and I think we get through the draft. Once you get through the draft, you start to see how things might really unfold here, and we'll have a better idea. Free agency July 1st is just around the corner. But the draft is such an important thing because is somebody going to offer a draft pick? Is someone going to offer them something that they can't pass up? And that's what you always have to be wary of. And so I think it's funny that, that we do hear all these rumors. Again, would you take Jason Thompson and another $6 million player for Josh Smith? I mean, Josh Smith has got a little crazy in him, but he's athletic. He can block shots. He can hit some threes, although he takes way too many. He might be a better fit next to DeMarcus Cousins. I mean, you'd be fast. You'd be athletic. He's an intriguing player, but I don't think that's the last we're going to hear of this. I think there are going to be other deals that are like that. I also think this is going to be sort of a very weird delayed free agency because of Carmelo, because of LeBron James, Chris Bosh, Dirk Nowitzki, the Kevin Love situation. There are so many monster free agents. I mean, Luol Deng. There are a lot of super good players that are available in this free agency class. And there are going to be a bunch of teams that swing and miss. And those teams, once they swing and miss, then they're going to come back to teams like the Kings and say, look, we need to add money. We need to add pieces. Are you still looking to deal a Jason Thompson? Are you still looking to deal player X? And maybe there's something that the Kings can work out here. So I don't know. I think we've got a little bit of time to see what's going to happen here. But the Kings aren't in a bad position. They don't have great assets, but they also don't have horrible assets.
Yeah, could you potentially see, I pose this to you, let's say hypothetically the Miami Heat, the rest of the big three, Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade, opt out, even including Udonis Haslem. I believe he also has an early termination option. They opt out. They create enough cap space. With the Miami Heat take on Jason Thompson's contract, there are rumors of them being interested in Kendrick Perkins. I think Jason Thompson's a lot better player than Kendrick Perkins.
Yeah, I think so too. And
if you just had to give up nothing, basically.
I don't know. I mean, it's going to be tough for. I would say if you're Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade and LeBron James, and you have to give up salary, and in exchange you get Jason Thompson, I think you're going to want a refund. I think you're going to be pissed. You're going to say, "Hey, no, I want my other contract back." And
LeBron's out here asking for Shabazz Napier, his favorite player in the draft.
He got him. Yeah,
he got his favorite player in the draft.
But I think a team like the Knicks, who just, who are making moves, trying to free up enough space to bring in Carmelo and LeBron, if they strike out, if they lose them both, then they have so much cap space. I mean, the same thing with the Lakers. I mean, the Lakers have got Kobe Bryant, they've got Steve Nash, and they've got I think they have one other player under contract. They're going to have to fill a void.
I don't know.
Yeah, they're going to have to fill a void here, and they're going to need to take on salary at some point if they strike out with all of these players. So it's going to get interesting. And I mean, they're going to have to sign straight up free agents. And the good thing is the Kings have Rudy Gay, who's already committed. I think that the Kings will work out a long-term deal after July 1st for Rudy Gay, a long-term extension, a 4-year extension for Rudy Gay. Just that's kind of what I'm feeling with these guys. I put some feelers out. I haven't got anything firm, but I'm expecting something right after July 1st. But Rudy Gay is going to want to see some improvement. He's going to want to see that the team is moving the right way, and this gives the Kings just a little bit of time to prove that. And then I think he would like to have his contract situation done and taken care of before the season starts. He's got a lot of other things on his mind, new baby, moving his family out here. I think he would like to plant somewhere and be somewhere long term. And he's already proven that Sacramento is a place that he will consider doing that. And I think it's very likely.
I think Rudy is also a reasonable guy. I think he's aware of the situation he was put in when he was traded here from the Toronto Raptors. You have no training camp. You got a cast of musical chairs for this roster throughout the entire season.
Yeah.
So he's looking at this situation saying, all right, I like playing for Mike Malone. I like Pete D'Alessandro. I like Vivek Radadive. I like what they're trying to do here. Let me see how this plays out with an actual offseason to prepare with my guys, an actual training camp to prepare for the season. And because, we look at the success that they had, it was minor and it wasn't over 500, but it was close to 500 when you had Thomas, Gay, and Cousins all playing together in the lineup. I think he sees that and he knows that there's potential there if they can put the work in the offseason to all get on the same page.
Yeah, and what I like, too, is that there are 8 players right now working out in Sacramento. Jared Cunningham, Ben McLemore, Ray McCallum, Willie Reed, DeMarcus Cousins, Derek Williams, Travis Outlaw,
Quincy Acee.
And Quincy Acee are already working out together in Sacramento. They've been here for like 2 weeks. If Isaiah Thomas signs a contract, he will be here. Nik Stauskas will be here. These players are here working out, getting ready already. They're going to be in Las Vegas working out together before Summer League. The Summer League team the Kings are fielding looks like it's going to be very good, especially since they didn't trade half of those players in draft day deals.
They're going for the championship, James.
They are. The
Summer League championship.
7 games, John.
That's why we're staying there for the full 10 days. I had somebody ask me, why are you going to stay in Las Vegas for the full 10 days of Summer League?
Debauchery.
And my response to them now is because I'm going to cover a championship squad.
Yeah, a championship, not debauchery.
No.
Yes.
Not at all. No, we're there to work, man.
Las Vegas.
Yeah. My voice didn't get lost last year at all. Don't listen to that podcast.
Yeah, that's
from a year ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, John, this is going to be a whirlwind. We've got like crazy stuff happening every day. Again, this podcast is going to be shorter than normal. We don't have a guest because it's draft night. We've been here all day long.
Were you disappointed at all? We posed this to fans, and I'll read some of the tweets here. Steve Svedson says, disappointed, no rim protector, no perimeter defender, no facilitator, no veteran presence via trade, similar pick as in 2013. Whereas Dave Lack says, Nik Stauskas is a fearless badass and will soon be many Kings fans' favorite player. Mark my words. What are your thoughts on the way things played out today?
I think we have to wait. We can't judge. I mean, we can, I don't ever like giving draft grades. We'll allow the fans to give their grades for the Kings, but I don't like doing draft grades, especially, you have no idea how these kids are going to turn out, and you have no idea what is going to happen next week when free agency opens up. You don't know how this team is going to change. And, it is what it is. You have to wait and see what Pete D'Alessandro is able to do during the entire summer. You can't just judge him off one pick in a draft that, was good, but the Kings didn't land in the top 5. And, it's a difficult draft.
They were just right on the edge.
You're right on the
They were right on the edge. I mean, Julius Randle goes 7 to the Lakers.
This is a 7-man draft. I think most people thought it was an 8-man draft, and with Noah Vonleh dropping like he did, it proved that this was really a 7-man draft. And then Stauskas and McDermott, that third tier of players. There was definitely a top tier of 3 players, maybe 4, and then a second tier of 4 players or 5 players. And then now we're looking at the third tier. And I think the Kings did reasonably well. This is what they needed to add shooting. Again, if you're looking at Stauskas versus Doug McDermott, to me, McDermott will never be a starter in the NBA. And he wouldn't be a starter on the Sacramento Kings behind Rudy Gay. He's not going to play the 4. He's not strong enough. He's not big enough to play the 4. So if I'm looking at those 2 players, sure, Stauskas is more of a creator. He's got better handles. He can create his own shot for himself and other people. But also, he can start in the NBA. And I don't think McDermott can start. And so I think they made, if I'm comparing those 2 players and I'm going to get one of the best 2 shooters in the draft, I think they made the right selection if that's my criteria. Now, again, there was no shot-blocking, athletic, defensive-minded Aaron Gordon at number 8. So you do what you can do. I think they did okay. I don't think that, again, I don't think I love the pick, but I think they did okay.
All right, on that note, let's wrap up this edition of the Cowbell Kingdom podcast. Thank you for joining us, and be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes, follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/cowbell_kingdom, and like us on Facebook as well, facebook.com/cowbellkingdom. So for James M., I'm Jonathan Santiago. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of the Cowbell Kingdom podcast.